Good evening, Dharma brothers and sisters. Welcome to another term of Thursday evening classes, philosophy classes, from Rongton Buddhist Training College here in Canberra. And this is the beginning of term 2 of 2025. Firstly, in case there's anyone new watching this later on the recording, I'll introduce our teacher, Rinpoche. Rinpoche was born into a nomadic family in Tibet, and he went on to train as a monk under some of the most eminent Tibetan masters of the previous generation in India and Nepal. He completed a 3.5-year solitary meditation retreat. This retreat earned him the title Lama, meaning spiritual teacher. He later earned the title Rinpoche, meaning High Lama, in recognition of his translation skills into English and his expertise in transmitting traditional Buddhist teachings to contemporary audiences such as ourselves. So this term we'll be continuing with the reading of the Vishuddhimagga, which is the Path of Purification, a classical Buddhist text composed by Buddhagosha. And before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge our kind benefactors and sponsors, as well as our committee and technical team who all work hard to make these teachings available. So on that note, I'll leave you all with Rinpoche. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamila. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone, and whoever are there in the universe. I'm sure you will be able to watch this if you're not present now. Thank you very much. We will start the session first with the good attention and most importantly good intention, and even better if we have the good retention of these messages of the reading. We will do this with the prayers. Firstly, recollecting the qualities of the Triple Gem and how much we are better when we remember the teachings, apply them, and how much we appreciate, incredible to the qualities and virtues of the Buddha, which is inexhaustible, always there for us to inspire. And we are, that is made possible by our Sangha, the unbroken transmission of the lineage. And that way we are much more useful to be with sentient beings. Otherwise they are struggling, and we could be even more struggling because we can't cope with their problems if we don't have Dharma. So therefore we need to use these teachings. Of course, during the time you are giving your time to be present, but even more so in the life's curly journeys, where we bump into sharp corners that we least expect. So there we need to remember these teachings and take it easy, be gentle, be kind, and be wise. So to remind us this, we will do the prayers. Join your hands at the heart. Oyenda Buddha Dharma Sangha Hajere Pije Ladama Bhavacha Ajendala Ashare Pada Ujuve Enda Buddha Dharma Sangha Aitere Yete Ladama Vache Ajevendala Ajare Vadavadrebe and the Buddha Dhamma Sangha Itere Yete Ladama Vache Ajevendala Ajare Buddha Udrebe. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know a power of happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, and those never. May all beings have happiness and cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they know a power of happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, and those never. May all beings have happiness and the cause of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May they never part from the happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. According to the intelligence and predisposition of it, where the Yajanda Dharma Grelo and come equals. Welcome to everyone. We are continuing the reading of this precious 16th chapter, which is on the description on the faculties, which has many subtopics, and we are going through the first noble truth of suffering. We read through the first 43 paragraphs, which covered the sufferings of birth. Now we'll start on page 571, paragraph 44, aging. Aging is suffering. Aging is twofold, as a characteristic of whatever is formed, and in the case of a continuity, as the allness of the aggregate included in a single becoming, which allness is known as brokenness, and so on. The latter is intended here. But this aging has its characteristic, the maturing, ripening of aggregates. Its function is to lead on to death. It is manifested as the vanishing of youth. It is suffering because of the suffering due to formation, because it is the basis of suffering. Aging is the basis for the bodily and mental suffering that arises owing to many conditions such as leanness in all the limbs, decline, warping of the faculties, vanishing of youth, undermining of strength, loss of memory, intelligence, contempt on part of others, and so on. Hence, it is said, with leadenness in every limb, with every faculty declining, with vanishing of youthfulness, with memory and wit grown dim, with strength now they're drained by undermining, with growing unattractiveness to wife and family, and then with dotage coming on, what pain alike of body and of mind a mortal must expect to find. Since aging all these will bring, aging is well named suffering. This is the exposition on aging. So next is on death. Death is suffering. Death too is twofold, as a characteristic or formed, with reference to which it is said, aging and death are included in the aggregates, and as the severing of the connection of the life faculty included in a single becoming, with reference to which is said, so mortals are in constant fear that they will die. The later is intended here. Death with birth is as its condition. Death by violence, death by natural causes, death from exhaustion of lifespan, death from exhaustion of merit are names for it. It has characteristic of a fall. Its function is to disjoin. It is manifested as absence from the destiny in which there was the rebirth. It should be understood as suffering because it is the basis of suffering. Hence it is said, without distinction as they die, pain grips their minds impartially. When wicked men their fall deeds see, or signs of new birth maybe, also when good men cannot bear to part from all that they hold dear, then bodily pain severs sinews, joints, and so on, and continues, torture unbearable, which racks all those whose vital death attacks, with grip that shall no more relax. Death is the basis of such pain, and this suffices to explain why death, the name of pain, should again. This is the exposition of death. Fourth is sorrow. As regards sorrow, etc., sorrow is a burning in the mind, in one affected by loss of relatives and so on. Although in meaning it is the same as grief, nevertheless it has inner consuming as its characteristic. Its function is completely to consume the mind. It is manifested as continual sorrowing. It is suffering because it is the intrinsic suffering and because it is basis suffering. Here this is said, sorrow is poisoned dart that penetrates a being's heart, setting up a burning there like burning with a red-hot spear. This state of mind brings future pain, such as disease and then again aging and death. So one may tell wherefore it is called pain as well. This is exposition on sorrow. Now, fifth one is lamentation. Lamentation is verbal clamor on the part of one affected by loss of relatives and so on. It has carrying out as its characteristic. Its function is proclaiming virtues and vices. It is manifested as a tumult. It is suffering because it is a state of suffering due to formation and because it is a basis for suffering. Hence it is said, now when a man is struck by sorrow's dart and he laments, the pain he is already undergoing, he augments with pain born of dry throat and lips and palate, hard to hear, and so lamenting to his pain, the Buddha did declare, this is the exposition on lamentation. 6. Pain. Pain is bodily pain. Its characteristic is the oppression of the body. Its function is to cause grief in the foolish. It is manifested as bodily affliction. It is suffering because it is intrinsic suffering, because it brings mental suffering. Hence, this is said. Pain distresses bodily, thereby distressing mentally again. So acting fundamentally, it therefore is especially called pain. This is exposition pain. 7th, grief. Grief is mental pain. Its characteristic is mental oppression. Its function is to distress the mind. It is manifest as mental affliction. It is suffering because it is intrinsic suffering, and because it brings bodily suffering. For those who are gripped by mental pain, tear their hair, weep, thump their breast, and twist and wreath, they throw themselves upside down, use the knife, swallow poison, hang themselves with ropes, walk into fires, undergo many kinds of suffering. Hence this is said, though grief itself distresses mind, it makes distress of bodily kind occur, and that is why this mental grief is pain as those that have no grief ever. This is the exposition of grief. 8. Despair. Despair is the same as the humor produced by excessive mental suffering in one affected by loss of relative and so on. Some say that it is one of the states included in the formation aggregates. Its characteristic is burning of the mind. Its function is to bemoan. It is manifested as dejection. It is suffering because it is suffering due to formation, because of burning of the mind, because of body dejection. It is said, so great the pain despair imparts. It burns hard as with fever's flame. The body's function it impairs. So despair borrows from pain its name. This is the exposition of despair. Sorrow is like the cooking of oil in a pot over a slow fire. Lamentation is like boiling over from a pot when cooking over a quick fire. Despair is like remains in the pot after it has been boiled over, and it is unable to do so anymore, going on cooking in the pot till it dries up. So to do with cooking. So next one is number 9, which is association with the unloved. Meaning having to be with people or you don't like. Association with unloved is meeting with the disagreeable beings of formations, inanimate things, maybe unpleasant places or things you have to do. Its characteristic association with undesirable. Its function is to distress the mind. It is manifest as a harmful state. It is suffering because it is the basis of suffering. Hence, this is said. The mere sight of an unloved thing brings firstly mental suffering and suffering of the body too. Through touching it, it can ensue, and we therefore may recognize, since meeting the unloved grief rise to either kind of pain, that he decided pain, its name should be. This is the exposition associated with the unloved. Number 10, separation from the loved. Separation from the loved is to be parted from agreeable beings and formations, inanimate things. Its characteristic is a bracket. I was thinking of bracket. Incredible. So I don't read the words. I just say what I think. You see. This says we just really don't read anything. An inanimate thing was in bracket for formations. And then my mind says bracket. Its characteristic is disassociation from desirable object. Its function is to arouse sorrow. It is manifest as loss. It is suffering because it is basis for the suffering of sorrow. Hence this is said, the dart of sorrow wounds the heart of fools who from their wealth must part or kin, which roughly should be grounds enough for counting the loved loss as suffering. This is the exposition of separation from the loved. 11th, not to get what one wants. Not to get what one wants. The want itself is some unobtainable object expressed in such passage as, oh, that we were not subject to birth. Oh, is called suffering, since one does not really get what one is wanted. Its character is the wanting of an unobtainable object. Its function is to seek that. It is manifested as a disappointment. It is suffering because it is basis suffering. Hence, this is said, when beings here expect to gain something they build their hopes upon, which fails upon, they are woe begone. Oh, this is a word I haven't seen. Woe begone. With the disappointments, numbing pain, thereof the cause is hope they wed to something they cannot obtain. Not to get what one wants is pain, the conqueror has therefore said. This is exposition not to get what one wants. 12. In short, the five aggregate as objects of clinging. In short, the five aggregates as objects of clinging. Now, birth and aging and each thing told in describing suffering, and those not mentioned, could not be where there were no aggregates for clinging. Wherefore, these aggregates for clinging are taken in totality as pain by him, the Dharma's king, who taught the end of suffering. For birth, etc., thus oppresses the pentad of aggregates as objects of clinging, as fire does fuel, as shooting does a target, as gadflies flies, etc., do a cow's body, as reapers do a field, as villages raiders do a village, and they are generated in the aggregates as weeds, creepers, etc., on the ground, as flowers, fruits, and sprouts are on trees. And aggregates as objects of clinging have birth as their initial suffering, aging as their medial suffering, and the death as their final suffering. Suffering are due to burning in one who is victim of the pain that threatens death is sorrow. The suffering consisting in crying out by one who is unable to bear, that is lamentation. Next, the suffering consists in affliction of the body due to the contract of undesirable tangible data. In other words, disturbance of the elements is pain. The suffering oppressing the mind through resistance to that is ordinary people oppressed by it is grief. The suffering consisting in brooding is those dejected by the augmentation of sorrow, etc., is despair. The suffering consisting of frustration of want is those whose hopes are disappointed not to get one wants. So when their various aspects are examined, the aggregates as objects of clinging are themselves suffering. It is impossible to tell all without remainder, showing each kind of suffering, even by going on doing so for many eons. So the Blessed One said. In short, the five aggregates as objects of clinging are suffering, in order to show in short how all the suffering is present in any one of the five aggregates as objects of clinging in the same way, that the taste of water in the whole ocean is to be found in a single drop of its water. This is the exposition of the aggregates, objects of clinging. This, firstly, is the method of the description of suffering. So that's the truth of suffering under those subtopics. Now, truth of the origin of suffering. But in description of the origin, the expression yayam tanha, the craving which ayavana tanha, as regards the expression, produces further becoming. It is a making become again. Thus it is borrowing again, punabhava, becoming again in its habit. Thus it is produced further becoming, punobhavaika, the expression of Nandira Gasaha Gata, accompanied by concern and greed. The Nandira Gena Sahagata, what is meant is that it is identical in meaning with delight and greed. Concerned with this and that, wherever personality is generated, there is concern with that. The expression that it is to say, seyatidam, is a practical. Its meaning is, which is that, the craving for sense desires, craving for becoming, craving for non-becoming will be explained in the description of dependent origination. Although this is threefold, it should nevertheless be understood as noble truth of the origin of suffering, taking it as one in the sense of its generating the truth of suffering. Okay, next is truth of cessation of suffering. The description of the cessation of suffering, it is the cessation of the origin that is stated by the word that which it is, that which is, or that same craving, and so on. Why is that? Because the cessation of suffering comes about with the cessation of its origin. For it is with the cessation of the origin that suffering ceases, not otherwise. Hence it is said, just as a tree cut down grows up again, while yet its root may remain unharmed and sound, so with the tendency to crave intact, this suffering is ever reproduced. 63. So it is because suffering ceases only through the cessation of its origin, that teaching the cessation of suffering, the Blessed One therefore taught the cessation of the origin. For the perfect ones behave like lions. When they make suffering cease, when they teach the cessation of suffering, they deal with the cause, not the fruit. But the sectarians behave like dogs. When they make suffering cease, when they teach the cessation of suffering by teaching devotion to self-mortification, etc., they deal with the fruit, not the cause. This is the result. First place, is how the motive for teaching the cessation of suffering by means of cessation, its origin, should be understood. This is the meaning of that same craving, of that craving which, it was said, produced further becoming, and which was classed as craving for sense desires and so on. It is the part that is called fading away, for with the fading away of the greed, he is liberated, is said. Fading away and cessation is cessation through fading away. Reminderless fading away, and cessation is cessation through fading away, that is reminderless because eradication of inherent tendencies. Or, alternatively, it is abandoning that is called fading away, and so the construction here can be regarded as reminderless fading away, reminderless cessation. But, as to meaning, all of them are synonyms for Nibbana. For in the ultimate sense, it is Nibbana that is called the noble truth of the cessation of suffering. But because craving fades away and ceases on coming to that, it is therefore called fading away and cessation. And because there comes to be the giving up, etc., of craving on coming to that Nibbana, and since there is not even one kind of reliance here to be depended upon from among the reliance consisting of the cords of sense, desires, etc., it is therefore called giving it up, relinquishing it, letting it go, and not relying on it. It has peace as its characteristic. Its function is not to die. Its function is to comfort. It is manifested as the signless, or it is manifested as non-diversification. Discussion on Nirvana. Question. 1. Is Nibbana non-existent because it is inappropriate? It's unapprehendable like the hare's horn. Answer. That is not so, because it is apprehendable by right reasons. For it is apprehendable by some, namely the noble ones, by the right means, in other words, by the way that is appropriate to it, the way of virtue, concentration, and understanding. It is like the supermundane consciousness of others, which is apprehendable only by certain of the noble ones, by means of knowledge of penetration of others' minds. Therefore, it should not be said that it is non-existent because unapprehendable. For it should not be said that what the foolish ordinary man does not apprehend is unapprehendable. Again, it should not be said that Nibbana does not exist. Why not? Because it then follows that the way would be futile. For if Nibbana were non-existing, then would follow that the right way, which includes the three aggregates beginning with virtue and is headed by right understanding, would be futile. And it is not futile because it does reach Nibbana. Question number 2. But futility of the way does not follow because what it reach is absence. That is, absence of the five aggregates consequent upon the cutting of the defilements. Answer: that is not so, because though there is absence of the past and future aggregates, there is nevertheless no reaching of Nibbana simply because of that. Question 3. Then is the absence of present aggregate as well Nibbana? Answer: that is not so, because their absence is impossibility, since if they are absent, their non-presence follows. Besides, if Nibbana were absence of present aggregates too, that would entail fault excluding the arising of Nibbana element, with the result of past clinging left as the path moment, which has present aggregate as its support. Question number 4. Then will there be no fault if it is non-presence of defilements that is Nibbana? Answer: that is not so, because it would follow that the noble path was meaningless. For it were so, then since defilements can be non-existent also before the moment of noble path, it follows that the noble path would be meaningless. Consequently, that is no reason. That is unreasonable to say that Nibbana is unapprehendable, that it is non-existence, and so on. Question number 5. But is not Nibbana distraction because of the passage beginning that friend, which is the distraction of greed, of hatred, of delusion, is Nibbana? Answer: that is not so, because that would follow that arhantship also were mere distraction. For that too is described in the same way beginning that friend, which is distraction of greed, of hatred, of delusion, is arhantship. And what is more, the fallacy then follows that Nibbana would be temporary, etc. For if it were so, it would follow that Nibbana would be temporary, have the characteristic of being formed and obtainable regardless of the right effort, and precisely because of it having formed characteristic, it would be included in the formed, and it would be burning like a fire of greed, etc. Because of its burning, it would follow that it was suffering. Question number 6. Is there no fallacy if Nibbana is that kind of distraction subsequent to which there is no more occurrence? Answer: that is not so, because there is no such a kind of distraction, and even if there were, the aforesaid fallacies would not be avoided. Also, because it would follow that the noble path was Nibbana. For the noble path caused the destruction of defects, that is why it is called distraction, and subsequent to that there is no more occurrence of defects, but it is because the kind of destruction called the cessation, consisting of non-arising, that is Nibbana, serves figuratively speaking as decisive support for the path, that Nibbana is called distraction as metaphor for it. Question 7. What is not stated in its form? Because of its extreme subtlety, and its extreme subtlety is established because it inclined the Blessed One to inaction, that is to not teaching the Dhamma, and because Noble One's eye is needed to see it, it is not shared by all because it can only be reached by one who is possessed of the path, and it is uncreated because it has no first beginning. Question 8. Since it is when the path is, then it is not created. Answer: that is not so, because it is not arousable by the path. It is only reachable, not arousable by the path. That is why it is uncreated. It is because it is uncreated, it is free from aging and death. It is because of the absence of its creation and its aging and death, it is permanent. Question 9. then it follows that Nibbana too has the kind of permanent of the atom and so on. That is not so. Answer: because of the absence of any cause that brings its arising. Question 10. Because Nibbana has permanence, then these, that is, atom, etc., are permanent as well. Answer: that is not so. Because in that proposition, the characteristic of logical cause does not arise. In other words, to say that Nibbana is permanent is not to assert a reason why the atom, etc., should be permanent. Question number 11. Then they are permanent because of the absence of the arising, as Nibbana is. Answer: that is not so. Because the atom and so on have not been established as facts. The aforesaid logical reasoning proves that only this, that is Nibbana, is permanent. Precisely because it is uncreated, it is immaterial, because it transcends the individual essence of matter. The Buddha's goal is one and has no plurality. But this single goal, Nibbana, is firstly called with result of past clinging left, since it is made known together with the aggregates resulting from past clinging still remaining during the Arhat's life, being thus made known in terms of stealing of defilements and remaining the result of past clinging that are present in one who has reached it by means of development. But secondly, it is called without result of the past clinging left, since after the last consciousness of the Arhat, who has abandoned arousing future aggregates and so prevented karma from giving result, is future existence. There is no further arising of aggregates of existence, and those already arisen have disappeared. So the results of past clinging that remaining is non-existent, and it is in terms of this non-existent, it is the sense that there is no result of past clinging here, that the same goal is called without result of past clinging left. Because it can be arrived at by distinction of knowledge that succeeds through untiring perseverance, and because it is the world of omniscient one, Nibbana is not non-existent as regards individual essence in the ultimate sense. For this is said, bhikshus, there is an unborn, an unbecome, unmade, unformed. This is the section of the definition dealing with the description of the cessation of suffering. Truth of the way leading to the cessation. That's the truth of the path. In the description of the way leading to the cessation of suffering, 8 things are given. Though they have, of course, already been explained as to meaning of description of the aggregates, still we shall deal with them here in order to remain aware of the difference between them when they occur in a single moment on the occasion of the path. Briefly, when a meditator is progressing towards the penetration of the Four Truths, his eyes of understanding with Nibbana as its object eliminates the inherent tendency to ignore, and that is right view. It has a right seeing as its characteristic. Its function is to reveal elements. It is manifest as abolition of the darkness of ignorance. When he possesses such view, he is directing of the mind onto the Nibbana, which directing is associated with that right view, abolishes wrong thinking, and that is right thinking. Its characteristic is right directing of the mind onto the object. Its function is to bring about absorption of the path. Consciousness is in Nibbana as object. It is manifested as abandoning of wrong thinking. And when he sees and thinks thus, his abstinence from wrong speech, which abstinence is associated with that right view, abolishes the bad verbal conduct, and that is called right speech. It has the characteristic of embracing. Its function is to abstain. It's manifest as abandoning of wrong speech. When he abstains thus, his abstinence from killing living things, which abstinence associated with that right view, cuts off wrong action, and that is called right action. It has the characteristics of originating. Its function is to abstain. It has manifested as abandoning of wrong action. When his right speech and right actions are purified, his abstinence from wrong livelihood, which abstinence associated with that right view, cuts off scheming, etc., and that is called right livelihood. It has the characteristic of cleansing. Its function is to bring about occurrence of a proper livelihood. It is manifested as the abandoning of wrong livelihood. When he has established on the plane of virtue called right speech, right action, and right livelihood, his energy, which is in conformity with associated with that right view, cuts off idleness, and that is called right effort. It has characteristic of exerting. Its function is to non-arousing of unprofitable things, and so on. It is manifested as abandoning the wrong effort. When he exerts himself then, thus, the non-forgetfulness in his mind, which is associated with the right view, shakes off wrong mindfulness. That is called right mindfulness. It has characteristics of establishing. Its function is not to forget. It is manifested as the abandoning wrong mindfulness. When his mind is thus guarded by supreme mindfulness, the unification mind, which is associated with that right view, abolishes wrong concentration, and that's called right concentration. It has the characteristic of non-distraction. Its function is to concentrate. It is manifested as the abandoning wrong concentration. This is method of the description of the way leading to the cessation of suffering. This is how the exposition should be understood here as to defining birth and so on. Number 9, as to knowledge's function, the exposition should be understood according to knowledge of the truth. For knowledge of the truth is twofold, namely knowledge as idea and knowledge as penetration. Herein, knowledge as idea is mundane and occurs through hearsay, etc., about cessation and the path. Knowledge consisting of penetration, which is supermundane, penetrates in four truths as its function by making cessation its object, according as it is said. Bhikshus, he who sees suffering sees all the origin of suffering, sees also the cessation of suffering, sees also the way leading to the cessation of suffering. And it should be repeated thus of all four truths. But its function will be made clear in the purification of knowledge and vision. When this knowledge is mundane, then occurring as overcoming of obsessions, the knowledge of suffering therein foretells the false view of individuality, the knowledge of origin foretells the annihilation view, the knowledge of cessation foretells the eternity view, the knowledge of path foretells the mortal inefficacy of action view. Or alternatively, the knowledge of suffering foretells wrong theories of fruit. In other words, seeing lastingness, beauty, pleasure, and self in the aggregates which are devoid of lastingness. Beauty, pleasure, and self, knowledge of origin foretells wrong theories of the cause that occur as finding a reason where there is none. Such is the world occur owing to an overload, the basic principle, time, nature, individual essence, etc. The knowledge of cessation foretells such wrong theories of cessation as taking final release to be in the immaterial world, in a world apex, etc. The path knowledge foretells wrong theories of means that occur by taking to be the way of purification, which that is what is not way of purification and consists of devotion to indulgence in the pleasures of the sense desire and self-modification. cessation. Hence, it is said, as long as a man is vague about world, about its origin, about its ceasing, about the means that leads to cessation, so long he cannot recognize the truth. This is the exposition should be understood here too, as to knowledge's function. Number 10. As to division of content, all states excepting craving and states free from cankers are included in the truth of suffering. The 36 modes of behavior of craving are included in the truth of origin. The truth of cessation is unmixed. The regard to the truth of path, the heading to the right view includes the fourth, the road to power, consisting in inquiry, understanding faculty, understanding power, and investigation of states, enlightenment factor. The term right thinking includes the three kinds of applied thought, beginning with that of renunciation. The term right speech includes in four kinds of good verbal conduct. Term right action includes the three kinds of good bodily conduct. The heading right livelihood includes the fewness of wishes and contentment. All these three constitute the virtue loved by the noble ones, and the virtue loved by noble ones has to be embraced by the hand of faith. Consequently, the faith faculty, faith power, and the road to power, consisting of zeal, are included because of the presence of these three. The term right effort includes fourfold right endeavor: the energy faculty, the energy power, the energy enlightenment factor. The term right mindfulness includes fourfold foundation mindfulness of faculty, mindfulness power, and the mindfulness enlightenment factor. The term right concentration includes the three kinds of concentration, beginning with that accompanied by applied and sustained thought, consciousness concentration, and the concentration faculty, the concentration power, the enlightened factors of happiness, tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. This is how the exposition should be understood as to the division of content. This division of content talks about all those 37 factors of enlightenment. Number 11, as to simile, the truth of suffering should be regarded as a burden. The truth of origin is to taking up of the burden. Truth of cessation as the putting down of the burden. The truth of path as the means to putting down the burden. The truth of suffering is like a disease. The truth of origin is like the cause of the disease. Truth of cessation is like the cure of the disease. Truth of path is like the medicine. On the truth of suffering is like famine. The truth of origin is like a drought. The truth of cessation is like plenty. And truth of path is like timely rainfall. Furthermore, this truth can be understood in this way: by applying these similes, enmity, the cause of enmity, removal of enmity, and the means to remove the enmity. The poison tree, the tree's roots, cutting of the root, and the means to cut the root. Fear, cause of fear, freedom from fear, and the means to attain it, hither shore, the great flood, further shore, and the effort to reach it. This is how the exposition should be understood as to similes. Number 12, as to retard. A, there is suffering that is noble truth. B, there is noble truth that is not suffering. There is what is both suffering and noble truth. D, there is what is neither suffering nor noble truth. So also with origin and the rest. Herein, A, thought states associated with the path and the fruits of asceticism are suffering, since they are suffering due to formation, because of the words, what is impermanent is painful. Still, they are not the noble truth of suffering. B, cessation is noble truth, but it is not suffering. C, other words, twofold, the two noble truths can be suffering because they are impermanent, but but they are not so in real sense of that for the full understanding of which the life of purity is lived under the Blessed One. The five aggregates as objects of clinging, except craving, are in all aspects both suffering and noble truths. D. The states associated with the path and fruits of asceticism are neither suffering in the real sense of that, for the full understanding of which the life of purity is lived under the Blessed One, nor are they noble truth. Origin, etc., should also be construed with the corresponding way. This is how exposition should be understood here as to tetrad. Tetrad means three lots. Number 13. As to void, singlefold, and so on. Firstly, as to void, in the ultimate sense, all the truths should be understood as void, because of the absence of any experiencer, any doer, anyone who is extinguished, and any goer. Hence, it is said, for there is suffering, but none who suffers. Doing exists, although there is no doer. Extinction is but no extinguished person. Although there is path, there is no goer. Alternately, so void of lastingness and beauty, pleasure, self, is the first pair, and the void of self and deathless the state, and the void of lastingness of pleasure and self is the path too, for which is voidness in these four. Or the three are void of cessation, and cessation is void of the other three. Of the cause is void of the result, because the absence of suffering in its origin, and the cessation in the path, because the cause is not gravit with its fruit, like the primordial essence of those who assert the existence of primordial essence. And the result is void of the cause, owing to the absence of inheritance of the origin of suffering, and of the path in cessation. The fruit of cause does not have its cause inherent in it, like the two atoms, etc., of those who assert inheritance. Hence, it is said, this is said, here they are of cessation void. Cessation void too of these three. The cause of its effect is void. Void also of its cause and effect must be. This is the first. This is the first place. This, in the first place, is how exposition should be understood as to void. Number 14, as to singlefold, and so on. And here all suffering is of one kind as the state of occurrence. It is of two kinds as mentality and materiality. It is three kinds as divided into rebirth, progress, becoming, in the sense sphere, fine material sphere, and immaterial sphere. It is four kinds classed according to four nutriments. It is of five kinds classed according to five aggregates as objects of clinging. Also, origin of one kind as making occur. It is of two kinds as associated with and not associated with false view. It is of three kinds as craving for sense desire, craving for becoming, and craving for non-becoming. It is of four kinds as abandonable by four paths. It is of five kinds class as the delight in materiality, and so on. It is of the six kinds class as the six groups of craving. Also, cessation of one kind being the unformed element, and indirectly, it is of two kinds as with the result of past clinging left, and without result of past clinging left, and of three kinds as stilling of the three kinds of becoming, and of the four kinds as approachable by the four paths, and the five kinds of subsiding of the five kinds by delight, and the six kinds class according to the destruction of the six groups of craving. Also, the path of which path path is of one kind as what should be developed. It is of two kinds, class according to its serenity and insight, or class according to the seeing and developing. It is of three kinds, class according to the three aggregates, for the path being selective is included by the three aggregates, which are comprehensive, as the city is by kingdom according as it is said. The three aggregates are not included in the Eight Noble Path, friend and Vishakha, but the Noble Eightfold Path is included in the three aggregates. Any right speech, any action, right action, any right livelihood, these are included in the virtue aggregate. Any right effort, any right mindfulness, any right concentration, these are included in the concentration aggregate. Any right view, and any right thinking, they are included in the understanding aggregate. Understanding aggregate is talking about the three higher trainings of discipline, meditation, and view, right view. He calls understanding. For here, the three beginning with the right speech are virtue, and so they are included in the virtue aggregate, which means the discipline, being of the same kind. For although is the same is the text, the description is given in the locative case in the virtue aggregate, still the remaining meaning should be understood according to the instrumental case, that is by virtue aggregate. And as to the three beginning with the right effort, concentration cannot be of its own nature cause absorption through unification on the object, but with energy accomplishing its function of exerting and mindfulness accomplishing its function of preventing wobbling, it can do so. Here is the simile: three friends thinking, we will celebrate the festivals, entered in a park. Then one saw a champak tree in the full blossom, but he could not reach the flowers by raising his hand. The second bent down for the first to climb on the back, but although standing on another's back, he still could not pick them because of its unsteadiness. Then the third offered his shoulder as support. So standing on the neck of the one, amid supporting himself, and on the other's shoulder, he picked as many flowers as he wanted, and after adorning himself, he went and enjoyed the festival, and so on, and so it is with this. For the three states beginning with the right effort, which are born together like the three friends who enter the park together, object is like the champak tree with full blossom. Concentration, which cannot of its own nature bring about absorption by unification on the object, is like man who could not pick the flower by raising his arm. Effort is like the companion who bent down, giving his back to mount upon. Mindfulness like the friend who stood by, giving his shoulder for support. Just as standing on the back of the one and supporting himself on the other's shoulder, he could pick as many flowers as he wanted, so too, when energy accomplished its function of exerting, and when mindfulness accomplished its function of preventing wobbling, with the help of so obtained, concentration can bring about absorption by unification of the object. So here in the concentration aggregate, it is only concentration that is included as of the same kind, but effort and mindfulness are included because of their action in assisting. Also, as regard right view and right thinking, understanding can not of its own nature define an object of impermanent, painful, no self, but with applied thought giving assistance by repeatedly hitting the object, it can. How? Just as a money changer, having coin placed in his hand and being desirous looking at it on all sides equally, cannot turn it turn over with the power of his eye only, but by turning it over with his fingers, he is able to look at it on all sides. Similarly, understanding cannot of its own nature define an object impermanent and so on, but assisted by applied thought with its characteristic of directing the mind on the object and function of striking and threshing, as it were, hitting and turning over, it can take anything given and define it. So here in the understanding aggregate, it is only right view that is included of the same kind, but right thinking is included because of its action in assisting. So, the path is included by the three aggregates because it was said that it is three kinds classed according to the three aggregates, and it is of four kinds as path, stream, entry, and so on. In addition to all the truths are of one kind because they are not unreal or because they must be directly known. There are two kinds as 1 and 2 mundane, and 3 and 4 supermundane, or 1, 2, and 4 formed with 3 unformed. They are of three kinds as 2 to be abandoned by seeing and development, 3 and 4 not to be abandoned, and 1 neither to abandon nor to be abandoned. They are 4 kinds classed according to which has to be fully understood, and so on. This is how the exposition should be understood as to single fold, and so on. Number 15, as to similar and dissimilar, all the truths are similar to each other because they are not unreal, are void of self, and are difficult to penetrate, according as it is said, what do you think, Ananda, which is more difficult to do, more difficult to perform? That a man should shoot an arrow through a small keyhole from a distance, time after time, without missing, or that he should penetrate the tip of hair, split 100 times with the tip of the similar hair. These are similar difficult to do so. Venerable Sir, more difficult to perform that a man should penetrate tip of hair, split 100 times with the tip of a similar hair. They penetrate something more difficult to penetrate than that, Ananda. Who penetrate correctly, thus this is suffering. Who penetrate correctly, thus this is the way leading to cessation of suffering. They are dissimilar when defined according to their individual concentration characteristics. 104. And the first two are similar, since they are profound because hard to grasp, since they are mundane, since they are subject to cankers. They are dissimilar in being divided into fruit and cause, and being respectively to be fully understood, to be abandoned. And the last two are similar because since they are hard to grasp, because profound, since they are supermundane, and since they are free from cankers. They are dissimilar in being divided into object and what has an object, and being respectively to be realized and to be developed. And the first and third are similar since they are under the heading of the result. They are dissimilar in being formed and unformed. Also the second and fourth are similar since they come under heading of the same, heading of the cause. They are dissimilar in being respectively entirely unprofitable and entirely profitable, and the first and fourth are similar in being formed. They are dissimilar in being mundane and supermundane. Also the second and the third are similar because they are the states of neither trainer nor non-trainer. They are dissimilar in being respectively with object and without object. A man of vision can apply by such like means his talent so that he among the truths may know the similar and contrary. The 16th chapter, called the descriptions of the faculties and truths, in the treatise of the development of understanding the path of purification, Vishuddhimagga, composed for the purpose of gladdening good people. So that concludes the 16th chapter. Now we start on the concluding chapter. This is a description of the soil in which understanding grows. Chapter 17, conclusion. Punna Bhumini Desha. Section A, definition of the term dependent origination. The turn has now come for the exposition of the dependent origination self and the dependently originated states comprised by the word etc. Since these still remain out of states called the soil, bhumi, of which it was said above, the states classed as aggregates, bases, elements, faculties, truths, and dependent origination, etc., are the soil. Herein, firstly, it is the state beginning with ignorance that should be understood as dependent origination. For this is said by the Blessed One. And what is dependent origination, bhikshus? With ignorance as condition, there are volitional formation. With formation as condition, consciousness. With consciousness as condition, mentality, materiality. With the mentality, materiality as condition, the sixfold base. With the sixfold base as condition, contact. With contact as condition, feeling. With feeling as condition, craving. With craving as condition, clinging. With clinging as a condition, becoming. With becoming as a condition, birth. With birth as a condition, there is aging and death and sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, despair. Thus there is a rising of this whose mass of suffering, foremost of suffering. This is called dependent origination, bhikkhus. Secondly, it is the states, beginning with aging and death, that should be understood as dependently originated states. For this is said by the Blessed One. And what are the dependently originated states, bhikshus? Aging and death is impermanent, bhikshus, formed, dependently originated, subject to destruction, subject to fall, subject to fading away, subject to cessation. Birth is impermanent, bhikshus, becoming, clinging, craving, feeling, contact, sixfold base, mentality, materiality, consciousness, formation. Ignorance is impermanent, bhikshus, formed, dependently originated, subject to distraction, subject to fall, subject to fading away, because fading away, subject to cessation. These are called dependent originated states, bhikshus. Here is a brief description. These states are conditioned, should be understood as the dependent origination. The state generated by such and such conditions are dependently originated states. How is that to be known? By the Blessed One's word. For it is precisely these states which are conditioned, that with the synonyms beginning with reality have been called dependent origination, by the Blessed One, who, when teaching the dependent origination in the sutras on the turning of the dependent origination and the teaching of the dependent origination and dependently originated states, thus. And what is dependent origination, bhikkhus? With birth as condition, bhikshus, there is aging and death. Whether perfect one arise or do not arise, there yet remains that element, a relatedness of the states, a regularity of the states, the specific conditionality. The perfect one discovers it, penetrates to it. Having discovered it, penetrates to it, he announces it, teaches it, makes it known, establishes, exposes, expounds, and explains it. See, he says, with birth as condition, there's aging and death. When becoming as condition, bhikkhus, there is birth.
With ignorance as condition, bhikshu, there is formation. Whether perfect one arise or do not arise, there yet remains that element, the relatedness of states, regularity of states, specific conditionality. The perfect one discovers it, penetrates to it. Having discovered it, penetrate to it, he announces it, teaches it, makes it known, establishes, exposes, expounds, explains. See, he says, with ignorance as a condition, there are formation. So, bhikshu, that herein, which is reality, not unreality, not otherness, specific condition, that is called dependent origination. Consequently, it should be understood that dependent origination has the characteristic of being the condition for states beginning with aging and death. Its function is to continue the process of suffering. It is manifested as wrong path. Because particular states are produced by particular conditions, neither less nor more, it is called reality, suchness. Because once the conditions have met in combination, there is no non-producing, even for an instant, of the states they generate. It is called not unreality. Because there is no arising of one state with another state's condition, it is called not otherness. Because there is a condition, or because there is total of condition for these states beginning with aging and death, as already stated, in called specific conditionality. Here in the word meaning, idda pachaya, the conditions, Imasam pachaya, conditions for those, ida pachaya, that conditions, ida pachayata, that conditionality for those, specific conditionality, all alternatively, ida pachayata, that conditionality, ida pachayayam samuhe, the total of condition, total specific conditionality. The characterism must be sought from grammar. Some, in fact, say that expression paticca samutpada, dependent, is characterized by thus, having depended paticca, arise from samma, arising upada, depending on causes rightly by, disregarding such causes, conjecture by sectarians as the primordial essence, prakrita, also as Purusha, and so on. So what they call dependent origination, paticca samutpada, is a simple arising, utpada, for they equate the prefix sam only with samma, rightly, and ignore the sam with kon. This is untenable. Why? There is no such sutta. It contradicts the sutras. It admits so no profound testament, and it is ungrammatical. No sutta describes the dependent origination as single arising. Anyone who asserts that dependent arising is of that kind involves himself in conflict with the Padesha Vihara Sutta. How? The newly enlightened one's abiding vihara, as is the bringing of the dependent arising to the mind, because of these words of the Blessed One, then in the first watch of the night, the Blessed One brought to mind the dependent origination in direct and reverse order, the origination and cessation. Now, Padesha Vihara is the abiding Vihara in one part, Desha, and that according to it is said, Bhikshus, I abode in a part of abiding in which I abode when I was newly enlightened. And there he abode in visions of structure of conditions, not on the visions of simple arising, according as it is said. So I understand feeling with strong view as its condition, and feeling with the right view as its condition, and feeling with the wrong thinking as its condition, all of which should be quoted in full. So anyone who asserts that dependent origination, simple arising, involves himself in conflict with the Padesha Vihara Sutra. There is likewise contradiction of the Kachana Sutra. For in the Kachana Sutra it is said, where a man sees correctly with the right understanding the origination of the world, Kachana, he does not say of the world that it is not, and there it is dependent origination in forward order, not simple arising, that as the origination of the world from its condition is set forth to order and to eliminate the annihilation view. For the annihilation view, it is not eliminated by seeing simple arising, but it is eliminated by seeing the chain of condition as the chain of fruits following on the chain of condition. So anyone who asserts that dependent origination is simple arising involved himself the concentration of the Kachana Sutra. 3. It admits of no profound statement. It admits of no profound treatment. This has been said by the Blessed One. This dependent origination is profound ananda, and profound it appears. As the profundity is fourfold, we shall explain below, but there is none of that simple arising, and this dependent origination is explained by the teachers as adorned with the fourfold method. But there is no need to any such tetrad method to simple arising. So dependent origination is not simple arising, since that admits of no profound treatment. 4. It is ungrammatical. This word paticca, having dependent, freely due to dependent, being gerund of the verb patti iti, go back to, establish the meaning in a formula of establishment by verb when it is constructed as past with the same subject as that of the principal verb, as in the sentence, having dependent on paticca due to the eye and visible objects, eye consciousness arises. Upajayati. But if it is construed here with the word upada, arising, which is a noun, in a formula of establishment by noun, there is breach of grammar, because there is no shared subject as there is the above quoted sentence, so it does not establish any meaning at all. So the dependent origination is not simple arising because it is ungrammatical. Here, it might be argued, we shall add the words comes to be hoti, thus, having dependent arising comes to be, that will not do. Why not? Because there is no instance in which it has been added, and because the fallacy of an arising follows. For in such passages as paticca sampuddhadam wo bhikkhavate desisam katamo cha bhavaye paticca sampuddho ayam vuchate bhavave paticca sampuddho. I shall teach you the dependent origination, bhikshus, and that is what is dependent origination. This is called the dependent origination, bhikshus. The words come to be are not added to any single instance, and there is no such expression as arising comes to be. If there were, it would be tantamount to saying that arising itself has an arising too. And those are wrong who imagine that specific conditionality, idda pachayati, is specific condition abstract essence, what is called abstract essence being in a particular mode in ignorance, etc., that acts as cause of manifestation or formation, etc. And the term dependent origination is used for an alternation in formation when there is that particular mode of the way of occurrence, ignorance. Why are they wrong? Because it is ignorance, etc., themselves that are called causes. For in the following passage, it is ignorance, etc., because themselves, not their alteration, they are called the causes of this state. Therefore, Ananda, just this is the cause, this is the source, this is the origin, this is the condition for aging and death, this is to say birth, for formation, that is to say ignorance. The last clause is not the D. Therefore, it is not actual states themselves as condition that should be understood as dependent origination. So what was said above can be understood as rightly said. If any emotion arises in the guise of the literal interpretation of the term dependent origination, paticca upasambhada, to the fact that it is only arising that is stated, it should be got rid of by apprehending the meaning of this expression in following way. For the double form, this term relates to a totality of states produced from a conditionality. Hence, the condition for the sum, through metaphor's device, have come to bear this fruit, named figuratively, in the Blessed One's exposition. The term dependent origination, which applied to the total of states produced from the total inconditionality, must be taken in two ways. For that total ought to be delivered at since when it is arrived, it leads to the supramundane welfare and bliss, and so the wise regard it as worthy to be arrived at pachetam, and when it arises upajayamana, it does so together with saha, and rightly samma, not singly or causelessly. So thus it is co-arising, samupado. Consequently, it is to be arrived at paticho, and that is co-arising, samutpado. Thus it is a dependent origination, paticca samutpada. Again, it arises as a togetherness, saha, thus it is co-arising, samupada, but it does so having dependent paticca in combination with condition, not regardless of them. Consequently, it having dependent paticca is a co-arising. Thus, in this way, it is also a dependent origination, paticca upasambhada, and the total causes is conditioned for that total of states produced from the conditionality. So, because it is conditioned for that, this condition causes is called dependent origination, using for it the term ordinarily used for its fruit, just as in the world molasses, which is conditioned for firm, is spoken, thus molasses is firm. Or just as in dispensation, the arising of Buddha, which is conditioned for bliss, is spoken, thus arising of Buddha is bliss. Or alternately, the sum causes two, they call, facing its counterpart to all, is in the sense dependent, as they tell. The sum of causes too, as stated, give fruits that cause that rise associated. So co-arising is called as well. These total causes we indicated severally under the heading of each cause, beginning with ignorance, for the manifestation, formation, etc., called dependent, taking it as facing gone to counterpart, owing to the mutual interdependence of the factors in the combination, is the sense both that they produce common fruit and none can dispense with. It is called a co-arising samutpado, since it causes the state that occur in unresolved mutual interdependence to arise associatedly. Consequently, it is dependent paticco and co-arising samutpado. Thus, in this way, it is dependent origination. Another method, this total conditionality, acting interdependently, arouses state together equally. So this too is the reason here, wherefore the greatest sage, the seer, gave to this term its form thus succinctly. Among the conditions described under the heading of the ignorance, etc., the respective conditions that make the conditionality arise, states beginning with the formation arise, are incapable of making them arise when not mutually dependent and when deficient. Therefore, this conditionality by depending paticca makes clear arise upadeti equally and together samam swahacha, not by piecemeal and successively. So it has been termed here thus by the sage whose skill in phraseology that confirms to its meaning. It has been accurately termed dependently originated paticca sambuddha is the meaning. And while so termed, the first component will deny the false view of eternity and so on, and second will prevent the nihilistic type of view, and others like it, while the two together show the true way that is meant. The first, the word dependent paticca indicates the combination of the condition, since states in the process of occurring exist independent on the combining of their conditions, and it shows that they are not eternal, etc., thus denying the various doctrines of eternalism, no cause, fictitious cause, and power welder. What purpose indeed would be combining of conditions serve if things were eternal, or if they occurred without cause, and so on. Second, the word in origination, samutpada, indicates the arising of the states since they occur when their conditionality combine. It shows how to prevent annihilationism, etc., thus preventing the various doctrines of annihilation of the soul, nihilism, there is no use in giving, etc., and moral inefficacy of action, there is no other word, etc. And when states are seen to arise again and again, each condition by its predecessor, how can the doctrine of annihilationism, nihilism, moral inefficacy of action be maintained? The two together, since they any given states are produced without interrupting the cause, fruit, continuity of any given combination condition, the whole expression dependent origination, paticca samutpada, represent the middle way, which reject the doctrine. He who acts is who he reaps, and one acts while another reaps, and which is the proper way described, thus not insisting on local language and not overriding normal usage. This is the first of the meaning of the mere words dependent origination. I'll stop there. Thank you, everyone. Let's do the dedication. Merits. Oh, Bade Mere Meve Ovaga Da Deva Medzege Omnis Me Ale Vere Robe Ronde Ojana Bada Desene Erenda Mahayana Jiji Vadeva Mere me obe begas den levas trehoda mahayana jije kareje manjuje nyode ezamanda badra Lava following over the Zambu Oja de Mere Mede Zelamba de Jeda Tebe Verena Yeranza Veras Bemba Meding Frele Vedade General. Thank you.